Hi, welcome to our online discussion of our webcast, of January 29, 2016.
Hello.
This is Amy Asbrook, the director of Toujours Vivant Not Dead Yet, and I'm Christian Debré, your host. So, Toujours Vivant Not Dead Yet is a non-religious organization by and for people with disabilities and our allies. Our goal is to inform, unify, and give voice to the disability right opposition to assisted suicide, euthanasia, and other ending of life practices that discriminate against people with disabilities. Today's topics. Latest figure from Belgium show more than 2,000 people were euthanized in 2015. In Belgium, over only 11 million people. Second subject is Canadian Association of Retired Persons hire Wanda Morris as advocacy director, which is a bad news. Okay, third one, compassionate choice give up in Connecticut for now. And the fourth one, a note on the slippery slopes. So Amy Albrook will do.
Thanks. Okay, the latest figures from Belgium show, why did I write sure? Show more than 2,000 people were euthanized in 2015. Last year in Belgium, 2,021 people were euthanized under that country's medical killing program.
This is only the official number.
Right, that's only the official number, and Belgium has a population of 11,200,000 people, give or take. That's a little more than Quebec, and they've already got 2,000 people who were euthanized in 1 year, and that might be a low figure. The program commission chairman, Wim Distelmans, said he believed that some of the increase in the last few years was due to more doctors reporting euthanasias they had carried out. So even though the doctors are supposed to report the euthanasias they do, apparently some people aren't, because the increase in the number of euthanasias because more doctors are reporting.
Okay, and the last figure that we have, we think that more than 50% of doctors doesn't report the euthanasia they do.
Right, and it's a little funny that Wim Distelmans, who's the head of the commission, is admitting that lots of doctors aren't reporting because it's his responsibility to make sure that the law is being enforced properly. So that means that he's not doing his job, but he's a very strong advocate for assisted suicide and euthanasia.
So the less he report, right, the less he will have trouble.
Right, exactly. Distelmans noted that there are probably still more unreported medical killings happening, which he said would bring the total as high as 4,000 people in 1 year.
And this is an advocacy for the suicide assisted who tell it.
Right.
Who say it. And it is unbelievable because 4,000 people over 11 million people, it's unbelievable. It's a number that it should not reach. At the beginning, like in most places where the euthanasia and assisted suicide is legal, it's supposed to be for a very small amount of people, not a rate so high.
Right, and it's not supposed to jump up really high either after a few years. It's supposed to stay a small number. And the fact that he's even willing to admit that the number is so high, that could mean the number is really even higher than that.
Yeah, and in the first time, the number was supposed to stabilize itself, you know, the 1 or 2 years of the beginning, and afterward, really level amount of people who ask for. But now what's happening, it's a curve like that, kind of curves who accelerate every year.
Right. It's almost a, no, I forgot the word.
Exponential curve.
Exponential curve, yeah. Belgium legalized euthanasia in 2002. The country reached the 1,000 person per year milestone in 2011, and the numbers are increasing even more rapidly since then. So
It's suffering.
They've gone from 1,000 persons to people per year to 2,000 in 5 years, and it took 10 years to go to 1,000. So
yeah,
it is right now on an exponential.
So, and
curve.
You could compare the law of Belgium with the one of Quebec. It is
very
a copy and paste law most.
Right.
And if it's happening in Belgium, which is a country, very evoluted country, with normal people, educated people, with a job and unemployment thing exactly the same as Quebec, you could compare it directly. Okay,
right.
We are not smarter than them, and our government is not better or worse. What happened in Belgium will happen in Quebec.
Right. I think that's a safe assumption, and so we can look into the future by looking at Belgium. And we see what the future is bringing us, and it's bringing us an exponential growth in the number of people who are having euthanasia. And that doesn't even include the number of people who are committing suicide by themselves.
Yeah.
So that's all of that added together is a pretty big number.
Yeah. It gives me the creeps.
Right. In 2014, Belgium legalized euthanasia for children, though Mr. de Stelzman said the Commission had not yet received any request for euthanasia of a minor. That doesn't mean a euthanasia didn't happen, it just means it didn't go through the Commission.
Yeah, and it could be seen another way, and which is not even better. Maybe it's because younger people want to live, okay, and parents want their children to live because they have kind of a number of years in front of them. So even if they're suffering a little bit or not doing well, they want them to live. Could be that too.
Yeah.
We don't know, but
right.
We assume that it's possible.
Right. We're hoping that it's true that no people under 18 have been euthanized, but we don't know for a fact.
Yeah.
Okay, our next topic is the Canadian Association of Retired Persons hires Wanda Morris as its advocacy director.
Bad news.
Yeah. According to an article in Toronto's Globe and Mail, Susan Eng was dismissed from her position as Executive Vice President for Advocacy at the Canadian Association for Retired Persons. And that's their abbreviation is CARP, C-A-R-P. And Susan Eng was essentially trying to be a neutral person in this debate. She tried to keep CARP's position neutral.
And in this debate, neutral is not very good, because when you are neutral, it means that you vote for the winner.
Right.
And right now, the winner on the court is people who are in favor of assisted suicide.
Right. So really, when you look at the issue, people who say they're neutral, they're really in favor of assisted suicide, since that's where most of the people are going. Ms. Eng was replaced by Wanda Morris, who was the former director of Dying with Dignity in Canada. And that's bad news.
She is an advocate for the assisted suicide and euthanasia. She worked hard to do that.
Right. She's been a very vigorous advocate. This step is worrisome because it declares an open shift from CARP's formerly neutral position to vigorous support for assisted suicide and euthanasia.
And we don't know why exactly. It's easy to find, you will see.
How this shift will play out is anybody's guess. Will Wanda Morris use CARP's substantial resources to promote assisted suicide to Canada's elderly population?
You bet they will.
Is that what CARP members want? I think those are both pretty important questions right now for an organization as big as CARP. They have 300,000 members, and that's a very substantial number of people, especially since more and more people are, the baby boom generation is getting over 50. That's an awful lot of people, and they have a lot of members, and they're supposed to represent the interests of all those people, not just some of them. So it's pretty bad news that they're taking such a specific position. Instead of Ms. Eng's broad mandate, i.e. to, all kinds of issues that she defends, Wanda Morris is likely to bring a much narrower focus to the advocacy position. This is in line with the position of CARP's president, Moses Znaemer, who is a financial backer of Dying with Dignity.
So is the president of CARP. He financed
Dying with Dignity.
Dying with Dignity, and the former president of Dying with Dignity is becoming director of advocacy for
CARP.
CARP.
So that makes kind of a circle there.
Yeah, and it's very bizarre. In French, it's traffic of influence. That what is called in English? I don't know.
Influence trafficking, yeah.
Probably, and it's mostly illegal most of the time. If you do that in a company, you will be sued.
Right. It's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And it narrows the interest a lot. And like I said, it doesn't represent the wishes of all the members of CARP, especially on such a sensitive issue as this. So that's kind of a bad, a lot of people might feel it's a bad move.
Yeah.
Recently, CARP ran a survey on its website, which was completed by 2,700 people, or about 1% of their members.
Which is a good sample for a poll.
Right. Ms. Eng said respondents wanted to control their own deaths, but they also wanted judicial review to protect potentially vulnerable people from abuse by assisted suicide and euthanasia. Ms. Eng said that CARP has not promoted the results of this poll. In other words, they want to hide the information because it didn't have the answers that they wanted. It didn't say the things that they wanted it to say because it was too neutral, so they haven't promoted the results of that poll. That's kind of, yeah.
Give me the creeps too.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to kill us when we're getting old.
Right, and they didn't want to hear what CARP members really were saying, and so they're not promoting the results of the poll.
They want that CARP's member
go
that
program.
way. Okay, be sure we have reason to do that. We are true, so go there.
Right, they want CARP members to go along with the program, and they don't want to hear what CARP members really want. So CARP is a non-profit that advocates on behalf of Canadians who are 50 years of age or older. CARP members can vote with their feet by canceling their membership to the organization and indicating the reason for their decision.
I will never
be
a member of CARP, be sure of that.
Yeah.
Never, ever, unless they change their mind.
Yeah, and they have all kinds of discount programs and insurance programs that they sell and all kinds of things. So people, who don't want to participate in that need to be careful not to take one of those offers. But they make a lot of money on those insurance things that they sell and all their special offers. So just be aware that if you don't want to support that kind of manipulation, that's how to do it. Okay, our next item is that Compassion and Choices, which is an American advocacy group for assisted suicide, has given up in Connecticut, at least for the time being.
That's a win for us.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a temporary win. Why? Because most of the time, every year, they represent another law for assisted suicide and euthanasia. They fail how many times? I don't know exactly.
Probably 5
4 or 5 times. Okay, and when it doesn't succeed the first, the second, or the third, they add up. Okay, every time.
Right.
And they could do it forever.
Right. Well, but the point is that right now they're not going to do it for a while because they want to try to do other things.
So it's a win for us in Connecticut.
Compassion and Choices has decided not to bring another assisted suicide bill in Connecticut after several failed attempts to pass such legislation. It appears they are focusing their attention on other states, such as Colorado and New York. And right now, in both of those states, there's pretty vigorous attempts to pass an assisted suicide law. And at the same time, there are vigorous attempts by the disability community to educate people about why that's not such a good idea. Stephen Mendelson of Second Thoughts, Connecticut, says that the fight needs to be brought to the political arena. He called for the formation of a political action committee to support anti-assisted suicide candidates in this year's election and to challenge pro-assisted suicide candidates.
It's a good idea.
Because if they're going to try to get pro-assisted suicide candidates elected, if they have a majority of those people in the legislature, they're going to come back and try to get another law passed. And if they have enough votes, they'll be able to pass it. So that's why it's important to keep those candidates out of office. And it's not a partisan question. It's not a thing of who's a Democrat and who's a Republican. It's a question of who's for assisted suicide and who's against. And that's why a political action committee is important at this stage. Okay, a note on the slippery slope.
The thing was supposed not to
Right.
be existing.
Right, the thing that supposedly doesn't exist.
Yeah.
We have often noted here that how the slippery slope works. A lapse in security that seems unthinkable one day soon becomes acceptable, and then it becomes normal. By the same token, safeguards that are proposed one day are abandoned later on as they are perceived to be unnecessary.
It will never happen here in Canada.
Right,
Not supposed to.
right. It won't happen here.
We are better than
that.
elsewhere.
Right, exactly.
We are a lot better. Yeah.
Right. Our doctors won't have any problem, finding people who aren't eligible. Nothing bad will happen. Right. This is the case in the June 2012 British Columbia's court decision in Carter versus Canada. In that decision, the plaintiffs, these are the people who are bringing the case.
Yeah, they are for the assisted suicide,
right.
not against.
They were asking for assisted suicide. They proposed a scheme of safeguards that has since been so worn down or dismissed in the more permissive environment that has evolved since then. Okay, so what they're proposing, we're going to go over that right now, but since then it's been worn down and dismissed.
Yeah,
the plaintiffs,
but it's not supposed to happen in Canada.
Right. There is no slippery slope. The plaintiffs proposed mandatory psychiatric evaluation, which is something that we've talked about.
And we asked for it too.
Right. The disqualification of people who have major depressive disorder.
And we asked for it too.
Right. A minimum waiting period, which would vary depending on the category of medical condition and could be longer for a person who has recently acquired a disability. So that would give somebody time to adjust to the disability, to get through their grief, and to, acquire, make home modifications so that they can set up their life a little better, have better quality of life.
And we think it is necessary.
Right, absolutely. Having a waiting period that's longer than a couple of weeks in that situation is really important.
This is just logic.
Right, exactly.
It's not even law, it's not even before or against, it's logic, it's a minimum.
Right, just giving people the time to get through their grief and to adjust to the change of circumstance. Requiring the person to confirm his desire for assisted suicide. In other words, the person has to repeat several times over the period of time that they do want assisted suicide, not just saying, oh my God, I want to die.
Oh, no, today is what's going very, very bad. I want to die.
Right.
Yeah,
but then the next day things are doing better, the pain medicines are working better, and the person changes their mind.
Everybody will look TV show or go to cinema or whatever things. you have kind of that happening every time.
Well, I mean, you've had situations where you were in great pain.
Yes.
And that was a really bad situation. And if somebody had asked you at that moment, do you want to die?
Oh,
you would have
yes.
said yes. But then we got you good pain medication, and
It doesn't want anymore.
right, it doesn't want anymore. So this is just ensuring that the person's desire to die continues.
It's depending on the situation. So
Right.
it's normal to give time to make sure that the situation, you adjust to the situation, or
Right.
the situation is adjusting to the life, something happens.
Right, and the person has to repeat the request over a period of time. The person has to be unable to commit suicide without help. That's an important point, and it's the basis of the Supreme Court's decision in Carter, but they didn't include it as an eligibility criteria. It's kind of weird that way that they didn't include it, but
they in that way the Supreme Court missed the point. The question was, make sure that the people who will become not able to suicide themselves, to make sure that they could at the end, to make sure that they doesn't have to do it earlier.
right.
So they want the assisted suicide. But what's happening now, it's free for all. Go.
Right. So they didn't put, but they didn't put in that requirement that they should.
It was the
Yeah.
case, and they doesn't judge on the case.
Right. Exactly. The plaintiffs in 2012 said that they thought a requirement for palliative care consultation would be a reasonable requirement. And that's something that we've talked about as well, that people should have to, talk to a palliative care doctor to find out what palliative care could do for them. The plaintiffs said that they would accept that the person would have to exhaust reasonable treatment alternatives for a non-invasive or minimally invasive nature.
So the people who are in favor of euthanasia and assisted suicide doesn't even now want the reasonable. They want to be unreasonable.
Right, exactly. And finally, they said that at that time that they would submit eligibility determination for review by an expert panel of 3 people before the person dies. And that's another thing that right. And that's another thing that we've been asking for, some kind of review, so that instead of just having 2 doctors decide whether the person dies, that there be some kind of review by independent people who aren't connected to the case to decide if the person really is eligible. That's what we've been calling for.
Yeah. And before the person dies, not after.
Right, before the person dies. And so that's something that they thought was a reasonable thing back in 2012. But if you compare these to the report of the Provincial and Territorial Expert Panel 3.5 years later, it calls for none of these safeguards and would loosen other restrictions such as age and competency via advanced directives.
Yeah, there's no slippery slope. But right now they ask for a teenager to be able to get the assisted suicide.
Right, and the fact is that teenagers are one of the highest risk populations for suicide. And they said, well, lots of teenagers are mature enough to decide if they want suicide. I know a lot of I
lost my girlfriend. I want to die.
I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and when they were teenagers, they were not mature enough to know if they were, they were barely mature enough to drive a car, let alone decide whether they wanted to live or die. So, not to disparage teenagers or anything, but they are the highest risk for suicide population.
Yeah.
In addition, the expert panel would allow video consultations with a doctor in place of a physical examination to determine eligibility. And no
No need to see the people in person. Just a
Right.
video will do enough.
Right.
So I'm suffering too much, doctor.
So
Oh,
the
I'm
doctor,
suffering.
the doctor wouldn't be
Kill
able to
me,
touch
please.
you. He wouldn't be able to examine all around you. He wouldn't.
But at the end, maybe I was just suffering from gas. You know, I eat something bad for me.
Right.
I'm suffering too much. Kill
Right.
me, please.
Right. Right. Yeah.
He could not push my belly to make sure that
Right.
it was not
Right,
only
exactly.
some kind of crap.
Right. And they're saying that they don't think it's necessary to have a health professional to witness or supervise a self-administered suicide.
Because it known that nothing could happen wrong.
Right, right. Nothing is gonna go wrong.
Yeah.
And
But you know, expert on the death of people, which is comment on appelle ça, how do we call it?
executioner.
An executioner in Texas missed their execution at least one time very, very badly, and few times a little bit less badly.
Right.
And they was expert. Okay.
Right.
So just an ordinary doctor who do it, let's say, like they say, once a year.
Right.
They will do all the time perfectly.
Right. Right. Exactly. Or, but this was the situation. What they're talking about here is if somebody just commits suicide at home with pills. So they're not even taking into consideration what happens oftentimes in Oregon, where people vomit the pills so they don't even eat them all, or they fall asleep in the middle of taking the pills, or
Yeah.
they can't swallow the pills. Or
So at the end, they don't die, but they give them a lot of trouble afterward.
right, exactly.
And sometimes they doesn't want to die anymore.
Right, exactly. In other words, the expert panel is recommending a law that is essentially the same as the laws that exist elsewhere now. Yet they're hoping for a better outcome with fewer problematic deaths. And as far as I know, and I've heard this said before, doing the same thing and expecting a different result is the definition of foolishness. So that's sort of what we're thinking, and that's our note on the slippery slope. Now, there are many reasons to oppose legalization of assisted suicide. Here are some of them. First, because it's unnecessary. Everyone already has the option either to commit suicide or to refuse medical treatment and
We
have
have
palliative
the proof
care.
of it. We have a video of Gabriel Bouchard who suicided himself in an hospital, Montréal-Rosemont, with the support of the people of the hospital before the law,
Right.
with no trouble at all. And we who are opposing this thing get an interview from him.
Yep. And that's one of our videos up on our YouTube site.
So go to look at it if you don't believe us.
Right. It's discriminatory because while people without disabilities receive suicide prevention services if they express a wish to die, people with disabilities will be encouraged and even assisted to kill themselves.
We know people who
And
it happened.
that was the situation with Gabriel. He said that he knew that if he had been non-disabled, they would not have allowed him to starve himself to death. But because he was disabled, they felt that his life wasn't worth living. Also, choice is an illusion because the choice to die cannot be free as long as people with disabilities do not have the choice in where and how to live. And because of discrimination and policies, public policies that discriminate against people with disabilities, we often don't have a choice of where and how to live. And finally, safeguards don't work. Where these practices are legal, safeguards do not prevent people with disabilities from being wrongly killed.
Just think about the speed limit on highway, 100 kilometers an hour. Lift your arm if you never ever
Right. Most people
go over
don't.
100.
Most people don't obey the speed limit, and that's human nature. People don't tend to obey limits, so why should they obey this limit?
I don't think that many people will break their arm by trying lifting it.
Right.
But I left my arm because I always go over 100. Sorry, not very much, but I always go over.
Right, exactly. To view our videos, you can find them by going to YouTube or using your favorite search engine and searching for the words euthanasia and disability. We have a YouTube channel and you can find them there. To participate live, send me your email address and I'll give that to you in a minute. And I will send you a link to join us live, and that will arrive about 15 minutes before the broadcast. For more information about the subjects that we discuss here, visit us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujourvivant, not dead yet, all one word. Visit our website at tvndy.ca. Send me an email at info@tv-ndy.ca, or follow me on Twitter at TVNDY. Thanks very much for joining me, and thanks to Christian for helping out.
Thank you, Amy. See you next week. Have a nice day and take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.